Well, good morning, fellow constitutionalists. These are my morning thoughts for January 15th, the year of our Lord 2016. I had a running conversation yesterday with somebody on Facebook that made a comment that I didn't agree with. And I explained my position, and the only thing they could come back with was innuendos and outright misassumptions about what I think and what I believe. We were talking about gambling. And we were talking about, the gentleman started it off with an article that, and his opinion in a blog, saying that if you are against gambling, you should be against public school systems because they use that money in gambling to support them. And I think he has a point. I think he has a reasonable point there, that why would we use an institution that uses gambling to support it if you're against gambling? So, but we got in this discussion where I shared an article by Wayne Jackson from Christian Courier talking about where does the Bible condemn gambling. And in the article, the Bible doesn't have a book, chapter, and verse that condemns gambling. It has stewardship principles that it actually puts out, that there's book, chapter, and verse on how to be a good steward of what God has blessed us with. And part of that being a good steward is not playing the lottery and not gambling your money away. Well, then the conversation went on to economics, where he said, well, playing the stock market is the same as gambling. First off, you shouldn't play the stock market. It is not a vehicle for gambling. I know there's day traders out there that make a lot of money, but there's also a lot of day traders that lose a lot of money. So I don't play the stock market. I invest in the stock market. I research my investments in the stock market in my 401ks and my IRA through mutual funds that I manage. I have control over these. I can put the money where I want. And I do my research. I do my due diligence, which is work. When you gamble, there's no work involved. Now, you have to go to the place, but you sit down. It's a game of chance. It's just pure luck if you're going to win. Now, can you lose on your investments in the stock market? Absolutely, you can lose. But over the long haul, in the stock market, if you take it as a whole, the stock market, you make money in the stock market. There's just no doubt about it. If you didn't, people wouldn't be invested in it. And in the stock market, the risk is shared by a group of people. When you're gambling, the only risk that's shared is by you. There's no shared risk in gambling. You're playing against the house, and the house always wins. Even if the slot machines pay out 90%, and when I was driving truck down south through Louisiana, you always see these billboards, oh, our slot machines pay out 90 cents on the dollar. Well, you still give them 10 cents for every dollar that you bet for the privilege of sitting there and pulling that one-armed bandit. And there's a good reason why they call it a one-armed bandit. So you assume all the risk. You're not spreading the risk out among a bunch of people. There's no way to investigate whether what you're doing is going to make you money, if it's a good investment or not. I mean, there's stories out there where people basically spent all their money, all their monthly money, not even their disposable income. I mean, all their money for their rent, utilities, food, and everything to buy lottery tickets in this last jackpot lotto for $1.45 billion. And they didn't win. Now they're crying the blues. I mean, Christians shouldn't be involved in that. We should condemn that type of ideology. I mean, I don't even play the Powerball with $1 because that's $1 that I'm putting at risk that doesn't need to be put in risk. I can invest that. I buy a candy bar, invest it myself. Maybe I want to grow my waistline a little bit more. Maybe my sugar's going low as a diabetic and I need that sugar so I don't die. So that's a good investment in me if I want to do that. So, and one more point about this whole thing. This gentleman seemed, in his Christianity, seemed to be coming from the emerging church movement ideology, where if it's not specifically condemned in the scriptures, then it's okay. You know, you can't condemn it. And he's arguing from the silence of the scriptures, which is a very bad place to argue from because God's word's not set up that way. God doesn't deal with us that way. God tells us exactly what he expects us to do, lays out everything that we need to do that pertains to life and godliness, as Peter said. He's given everything we need for that purpose. So we have everything that we need in order to be well-pleasing to God and do God's will. I mean, the Old Testament, the law in the Old Testament is set up that way. He told them exactly how temple worship was supposed to be. And if they went beyond that, they were in trouble with God. And that's what this gentleman's doing. Plus, his economic theory is totally flawed. His economic theory is a some game, some lost game, where there's only one pie and there's only so much pie instead of an economy that makes more pies. So, this guy is ignorant of his ignorance, and we need to educate ourselves out of our ignorance, folks. These are my morning thoughts. See you later on the show today.